In trading, knowledge is power, and lack of knowledge in what you're doing can be costly, very costly. So you need a solid foundation of quality market education. Whether you're new to trading or a seasoned veteran looking to add advanced strategies to your arsenal, there's always something to learn and something to improve on. And now you can access the same knowledge that professional traders receive with Market Rebellion's Trading Education. I'm Bill Johnson, Head of Options Education here at Market Rebellion, and we've assembled a comprehensive curriculum based on decades of real trading experience, covering everything you need to know about trading options from beginner to advanced. We go way beyond the nuts and bolts of options theory to teach you how to apply specific trading strategies and the techniques needed to adapt your trades when markets shift. Regardless of your goals, you'll gain access to the education you need with easy-to-consume lessons so you can learn to trade with confidence, enhance your knowledge, and master the practical skills required for market success. So please join us for in-depth trading education only from Market Rebellion. Hey, good morning once again, Market Rebels. And yes, again, I said morning. Normally we're on at 4 p.m., but we had to record early. It's about 8:45, so long before the markets are open. But Stu, what are the futures doing right now?
They're about as flat as you're going to get.
That's what I saw that earlier, yeah.
The Dow futures are down 50. The S&P's 3.
Yeah,
Nasdaq futures are flat, down
yeah,
1.
flat. We'll have to see what happens later on. We've got our Q&A at noon. That'll be interesting to see. But for Coach's Corner today, we've got another really cool topic.
Really
And
cool
this,
topic.
yes, this came to us because we've been hearing it a lot in some of our Q&A classes, some of the other webinars, and people get all kinds of confused when they start looking at risk-reward ratios and start saying, what's a better trade? And they just focus on this risk-reward ratio. And it doesn't help that a lot of brokers platforms actually show it to you.
Mhm.
But we want to show you that's really, yeah, you can calculate the risk reward ratio, but that has nothing to do whatsoever with whether it's a good bet or not.
There's an element that people fail to recognize
Yep.
in the equation.
Yep. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So let's kick things off with our Chalk Talk question. Which bet is better? Now, for
Mm.
anybody who knows us from our Q&As, that anytime we say the word better, be very skeptical, but you should at least say, all right, but why? What's going on here? So the first bet is where you can bet $1 to make 4, and the second bet is you have to bet 9 to make 1. So if that's all the information, is there one of those bets that you would gravitate towards? Would you rather pay 1 to make 4 or 9 to make 1? Or maybe you might say there's not enough information. So we want you to just kind of think about that for a moment, which one kind of appeals to you, and then we'll come back at the end and answer it, and I think you will be very surprised.
Ask yourself the question, which one, ask it a couple different ways. Which one is better? Which one is riskier?
Which one's
Um,
riskier? Yeah.
which one would I, how would I put more money into if I had my choice?
Yep.
Ask yourself a few different ways, and
Yep.
you're going to see how, things that you see and things that you read, a lot of times are just pure nonsense.
Nonsense. So today's topic, as you might have guessed, misperceptions with risk reward ratios. One of my favorite topics because, again, we hear this all the time. So a risk reward ratio, what it is, it's the amount that you bet or pay, let's say in the world of options, versus the amount you can make. So let's say that you buy the 100 105 vertical spread for 3. We know that the most it can be worth is 5, the difference in strikes. But once we subtract out the $3 paid, the net in your pocket is 2. So traders might say that you are risking 3 to make 2, where it has a risk reward ratio of 3 to 2. And of course, we can reduce that down to 1.5 to 5. So, excuse me, 1.5 to 1. So you're basically, for every $1.50 you're putting into it, you can pull out a maximum of 1. And what we want you to do is just kind of think about these, where they're coming from. And so we're going to talk about them throughout the presentation. But right now, we just want you to know the definition of a risk reward ratio. So the misperceptions, the first one is that dollars don't show the risk. That's key. The risk is always determined by the probability of loss. So you could have a risk reward ratio of 9 to 1, and a lot of traders will think that this is risking a lot to make a little, and they'll say it's high risk. When we're going to find out it's actually low risk, the odds are in your favor. Then we could also flip it around. Well, if you think 9 to 1 is bad, would you be better off on the other side of the bet, betting 1 to make 9? And some traders will get fooled and say, oh, yeah, I'd much rather do that. It's the same bet, it's the same probabilities. And yet, in one case, they think that it's better. And in the other case, they don't. You have to say, what is the nature of the bet? It's either priced fairly or it's not. But what you do not want to do is say, in this example, oh, geez, you have to, or I'm risking 9. I'm always never in favor of using this number as the amount that you are risking or to define the risk. It's not. That does not, the risk is always about the probabilities. Now, you could make an argument that if these numbers were generated in a market, that it looks like the odds are in your favor. That would be a fair statement. But right now, we don't even have that. We're just saying it's a risk reward ratio of 9 to 1. There's no other information. And the thing that you don't want to do is to say that it's high risk because you're betting a lot to make a little. And we hear virtually everybody, I mean, like 99% of traders that would all say this is very high risk. And it's actually very high probability of winning. It's low
Bill,
risk.
if we were somehow able to get Warren Buffett on our show and said to him, Warren, Mr. Buffett, um, is betting $950 to make 50 on a T-bill high risk or low risk?
Right.
What would he say?
A
And would
great
the
example.
answer be different
Right.
if I said 950 million to win, what would that be? A billion? Is it different?
It's
You
the
know,
same. Right.
it's not. You can't make a judgment call on the value of the
Correct.
dollars. Everybody's going to be different.
Right.
You know, what's a lot of money to what's $100 is a lot of money to one person. It's nothing to another person. It's not our place to make that judgment call. It's about the
Right.
probability of the win or the loss that is that is that we're concerned with when we talk about risk. Risk is the unknown.
I have a slide on that topic a little bit later, but that's a very good observation where some people would say, yeah, I'd be willing to bet 9 to make 1. But if somebody says I'm willing to bet 9,000 to make 1,000, I'll say, oh, that's a horrible bet. It's the same bet.
Same bet.
It's the same bet. Yeah, now you're just introducing your preferences for how much money is in it, but it's got
Mhm.
nothing to do with the bet. The
Right. It
bet
can
is
go
always
into the
about the risk.
millions, tens of millions.
Yeah,
It's
it's the
the
same
same
bet.
bet.
Okay, so the first thing to understand right now is that if you have a situation, whether it's a bet or a vertical spread where you have to, let's say, pay a lot, relatively high amount to make a relatively small amount, that does not make it high risk. It's just the opposite. If this comes about as a market, markets are bidding it up to these numbers because the odds are in your favor. It's actually low risk. All right. So, quick plug for us for anybody who's new, marketrebellion.com/get started. All kinds of great tutorials in there and videos to help you, a lot of them on topics just like this to help you make better decisions. So, check us out there. So, Stu, here's a good little analogy that we use a lot in our Q&A classes. Let's say we're going to put 10 numbers into a hat, and you're going to win if you draw the numbers 1 through 8.
Love the hat. Yep.
Okay. I like it just because it makes it very easy to visualize where the probabilities are coming from. So notice that we have 8 ways to win, the numbers in green, and 2 ways to lose. So in the betting world, we would say that there are 8 to 2 odds in your favor. 8 ways to win, or 8 favorable numbers to 2 unfavorable. And of course, we can reduce that down to 4 to 1. So now the question is, what would you have to, why would you bet 4 to make 1? And that's where people say, "Oh, that would be horrible. You're risking a lot to make a little. It's a horrible bet." Well, no, it's a reflection of the probabilities. Anytime you have assuming it's developed from a market somehow, where you have to pay a lot to make a little, it's because the odds are in your favor. Like Stu said, a T-bill, you might have to pay 950 to make 50. And if you wanted to use this metric of saying, well, that's a horrible risk reward ratio, it's high risk because you're risking 950 to make 50, there's no risk in that deal. So
If you
how can you
if you believe the government is going to pay off and
well,
not default, there's zero risk in it.
now, not to mention inflation risk and all this stuff, but right,
No,
default
no,
risk,
we're not
right? We're
doing
just saying the default risk is considered to be zero. That's why the market has bid it up to 950 to make 50. So what happens here? Where is this? Why should we have to pay 4 to make 1? Well, what a lot of traders think whenever they hear bets or whenever they're starting to assess the value of a bet, and I don't know why this is, Stu, but they always assume that all bets are dollar for dollar.
Always,
Yeah, they
always.
just assume,
And
well, it's dollar for dollar, but now you want me to pay 4? Ooh,
yeah,
who wants that? I'm not, that's a horrible bet.
and that is exactly not what's ever going on.
And never going on. But they'll say, oh, but if you're going to let me bet 1 to make 4, oh, that's a great deal. Well, the reason that they think that is that they're back to thinking that every
The,
bet is dollar
both
for dollar, like
both
a
bets are equal, which they're
like it's
not.
a coin flip.
Yeah.
So let's think about if these are weights right here, the green block and the red block are the same size. And if we put them on a seesaw, they're going to balance right here, equidistant from these red and green boxes. All right, we can all see that a seesaw would balance there. But if we have 4 ways to win in the hat game and 1 way to lose, right? 8 to 2, 4 to 1, what happens to these ratios? They're not equal. It's not 1 to 1. It's this. You have 4 times the ways to win compared to 1 way to lose.
Just think of that hat. It's the same. This is the graphical representation
Yeah.
of the hat.
So the odds are well in your favor. What happens to the seesaw now? It's absolutely in your favor over here if it's dollar for dollar.
But it's not, Bill.
But it's not. Right. So now what do we have to do to make it balance? Think if you're going to put 2 kids on a seesaw, they're equal weight. You put the little fulcrum, the balancing point right here. What happens? This side comes straight down. What would you have to do you'd have to put a bigger kid on this side. You have to put more weight over here. And so how much more? 4 times. And notice that we have on the left, 1 times 4 is the same as 4 times 1. That's just a principle of levers, and what's called the force times the force arm has to equal the resistance on the resistance arm. It's just saying that these distances here multiplied by the weights have to be equal. It's
Bill, you're taking me back to
fairly
my
intuitive.
11th grade physics class, which I did not do well in.
Fairly intuitive, but now it's in balance. And if it's in balance, what can we say about it?
It's a fair bet.
It's not a great bet. It's not a bad bet.
It's a
It's
fair bet.
just fair.
Yeah.
And if it's a fairly valued bet, there's probably no reason to take it. You know, they come around a lot. But some people would say, oh, I can bet 1 to make 4.
I'm in. I'm in. Sign me up.
I'm in. Like, well, it's not, it's just a fairly valued bet. Why would you want it? But these are why traders make so many mistakes. So we can look at it another way. We had an 80% chance of winning a dollar, right? We have 8 out of 10 numbers. Let's say the reward is $1. We multiply these out, we get 80 cents. We have a 20% chance to lose. And we just found out the fair value should be $4. So 20% of the time we're going to have -4. We multiply those out. Look at that. We get -80. When we combine these, we get 0.
And it's
So
a
this
fair bet.
this is another way to show that in the long run, this net zero actually has an interpretation. It means that if Stu and I were to do this bet for thousands and thousands of times, on average, there should be 0 money changing hands. It's just a fairly valued bet. That does not mean that one of us cannot be up or down at various points, but in the long, long run, it's going to be very close to 0. Now, check it out up here too. We can see the odds up here. The percentage here is what?
4 to
4
1.
times
Same
the
thing.
percentage to win, 80 versus 20. And what about the dollars over here? 4 times. All right, we've got the advantage on top with 80%, so we have to give the advantage down here, or with the weight down here, to 4. And so that's another way to show that it is a fairly valued bet. And again, if it's a fairly valued bet, no reason to play it. Think of it on a simpler term. Simpler terms, would you want to just flip a coin all day? Say, I'll pay you $1 every time you're right. You pay me $1 every time I'm right. You're just going to sit there and spin your wheels. There's no reason to do it.
It might be fun, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point. Some people say, it's just the fun of it. It's the thrill. And that's fine. But you have to say, are you doing the options or the investing for the thrill of it?
Economically, it doesn't make
Or
any
are
sense.
you trying to make money? And that's a good distinction. So even though it might appear to be good, where you might be able to pay 1 to make 4, it's not all that great. It's just fair. So let's look at, here's a simulation of 3,000 tries of this game. And you can see that, of course, we start at 0. In the long run, we will always come back to 0. But at some points, we might be up. Right? So if this is me, I was actually up about $40, and then I was down almost $70 down here. Then I was up about $80 at this point, and then right back down to 0. So sure, there's going to be moments when one of us is up or down, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a stroke of genius or a trading strategy. It's just randomness. You're going to have moments when one person can go off on streaks, but they will eventually come back to 0. So this is why I would say, what's the point of playing?
Here's something else I kind of just thought about.
Right.
Suppose there's a situation in a marketplace where the market is, because buyers and sellers, meet at a level, and that could be a fair value bet, which is different than really fair value puts versus calls. But did we do that one? Put call and power? I think we did.
I think we did.
But anyway, that's a different topic. We're assuming that all the information is present in the marketplace.
Right.
But suppose there's a piece of information that is not present in the marketplace that you may have, or you may think you have.
Mm-hmm.
Now that what is perceived to be a fairly valued bet
is favorable now from your perspective.
Valued bet, right? Because that information is not out. Now you can go in and use the leverage in the options market to take advantage of what really is an unfair bet to the marketplace, but a much greater fairly valued bet to you, only because of the information that you may have.
Asymmetric information, and that is really what a trader would look for. Do I have an edge? Not, I can pay 1 to make 4, let me jump on it, it's therefore great. And we hear that all the time. I don't know where it comes from. People say, I call that a good bet in my book any day, and they laugh about it like it takes some stroke of genius to realize if you can pay 1 to make 4 that somehow it's obviously a good bet. It just isn't. It might be, but we have to figure it according to fair value. Okay, so here's what it looks like paying or betting 4 to make 1 with the hat game. And again, the reason you have to pay so much to make so little is that you're winning 80% of the time. And that's what's keeping it in balance and just allowing you to go sideways over time. So quick little plug, reminder, marketrebellion.com/get started. Lots of cool articles and videos just like this to help you get started with options and to make better decisions. Now let's take a look at this one. This is maybe bet 450 to win $1. So notice where some people think, if you have to bet 4 to win 1, it's a bad deal because you're betting a lot to make a little. Not necessarily true. We need to know the probabilities. So if you can bet 450 to win one, now I can tell you this is a bad deal because fair value is what? 4. You're getting charged above fair value here. Now, what if we did this? What if we said you can play this game, the hat game, where you have to bet 350 to make $1? That's a fabulous deal. Even some people would say, oh gosh, you got to pay a lot to make a little. This is a horrible bet. Don't go near this one. Are you kidding? It's a phenomenal bet.
Yeah. And think of yourself in the marketplace. Like, what could you do with that information? So if it's if you think the fair value is 4 and somebody else wants to pay 450, well, maybe you want to sell it. Maybe you want to
Absolutely.
sell that bet, right? And maybe if
Right.
it's offered at 350, maybe you want to buy that bet. But
That's what,
at the same time, look, the marketplace is the marketplace, and you have to say, like, why is somebody willing to sell it at 350?
that's right.
Why is somebody willing to pay 450? Right?
That's right.
That's part of the art of this, and that's not the math of it. That's just the art.
But and that's a very good point. But that's the trader mentality. It's not, oh, look at this. You can pay 1 to make 4. Let's just do this one. How brilliant are we? It's got nothing to do with it.
No,
And
no.
that's why so many traders end up getting hurt because they think they're taking low risk, high reward trades, which doesn't make sense, uh, or high probability trades, and they just think, oh, it's a matter of time before I have these big windfalls. It's not.
No,
You
no. I
got to
remember
balance
selling
it.
I remember selling options, these put options one time at like 50 cents. They traded up to 75 cents. They traded up to $1. They traded up to $1.25. They traded, and the stock wasn't moving.
Wow.
They just kept trading up to $1.50. And finally I said, enough. I started jumping on the bandwagon. Of course it was too late already. They actually went to 3 with the stock unchanged. There was information that was out, but it wasn't in the marketplace yet. People
Yeah.
had it. Had
Yeah.
to do with like some stub on a buyout thing. But
Yeah.
that's that
Somebody
that's
had it.
somebody had it. Right. Somebody had it.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. So now let's look at another example just to kind of solidify the concepts here. Let's look at roulette. So in the game of roulette, now these are not all of the bets in roulette, but one is called the single number bet, and Vegas will pay you 35 to 1. You can
Bill,
bet on 2 adjacent numbers. They'll pay you 17 to 1. You can bet on 3. It's called a street bet, 11 to 1, corner bet, 8 to 1. There's all kinds of bets.
Bill, can I make a bet on roulette where I will guarantee myself a win?
Depends on what you mean by a win. If you mean by a profit, no. But if you mean
No,
by a
not a
win, yes.
profit, a win.
Oh,
I want to
absolutely.
win. I want to win 100% of the time.
Yeah, we're gonna. In fact, I've got a slide. We're working right up to that. So the thing that I wanted to show here, I'm going to pick on the single number bet just for this reason. Again, if we go back to trading, a lot of traders would say, "Oh, look at this one, Stu. This is a phenomenal risk reward ratio. They're going to pay, Vegas will pay $35 for every dollar you bet."
Bill, can I go broke winning 100% of the time in this game?
You can. I'm going to show you that. Yep.
Whoa. Okay.
So here's the thing that you have to bet 1 to win 35. And again, if you go back to most traders' mentalities, they'll say, this is a phenomenal bet. It's a great risk reward ratio. It's low risk and high reward. Exactly backwards. So if that's all you're after is where you can win a lot and bet a little, head for Vegas. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. So what's going to happen here? This is hopefully going to show you that this is not where the answer lies. So let's look at fair value. On a roulette wheel, there are 38 spaces, at least for the US.
This is great.
We can win the $35 prize. We multiply them out, get this number right here. If there's 1 out of 38 ways to win, there's 37 out of 38 ways to lose our dollar. We get this number, we add them up, what happens?
Whoops.
Whoa, it's not 0 anymore.
I hate that.
Hate that. Now, what this is telling you is that on average, for every dollar bet, you're actually throwing 5 cents away.
Every $100,
That's what that minus sign
$5.
is. There's a 5 cent, there's a little current in the casino's favor. Now, granted, it's not a huge current, which is why you can certainly be up. You could be playing for hours and you might be up money at roulette.
You
This
might.
is always talking about the long, long run.
Hmm.
You're going to end up underwater. But one of the kind of analogies I tell traders is that if you're standing with your friend at roulette, and your buddy's standing there betting $1 on a single number, and you're standing next to him throwing 5 cents into the trash can, both of you, on average, are doing the same thing. Now, it doesn't feel like it. Certainly, that guy that's betting might be up or down, whereas the guy that's flipping the money in the trash can is always heading straight down.
But that guy isn't having any fun.
It's certainly not having any fun. But take a look here. We can see why this is a negative edge. The probabilities are 37 times against you. You have one way to win, 37 ways to lose. But look at the reward. It's only 35 times as big.
And look, remember, everybody, you're betting every number on the board.
Yeah. So you have to say that it's very obvious right there. It's not a fairly valued bet. If it were fair, this number should be what? 37. Well, Vegas wouldn't be in business if they made it fair. But the point is that now you can at least look at it and gauge just how fair or unfair it is. So, but there's the secrets to it right there. So now here's your slides, Stu. Guaranteed winning system. I love to talk about this because some traders love these great risk-reward ratios. Excuse me. So, for everybody who likes to bet $1 to win 35, I got a fabulous deal for you. This is a guaranteed winning system. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to take $38, buy dollar chips, and what are you going to do? You're going to cover the entire board. Guaranteed to win. Right? One of those is going to hit, and you'll get 35 bucks. So now the question is, how much did you make? Well, you win 35. You also get a return of your dollar. You don't lose that if you won the bet on whichever number. They return that chip to you. So you got $36 back. What could be better? Lots of profits. But how much did we pay to play? 38.
More
So
than
we
that.
we walked into the casino with 38, we walk out with 36, so we're down $2 out of 38, or 5.3%. There's that edge. So even if you cover the board, this is why it's funny, they now have a tote board on a lot of the roulette wheels in Vegas, and they'll show you last numbers of spins and odds and evens and black and red. And so people sit there glued to it trying to look for patterns. And Vegas couldn't care less. Cover the board. Why look for patterns? Why make it difficult? Just cover the board. This is where it's heading. So if we do 35 to 1 in the long run, here's 3,000 spins. What happens? In the long run, we sink. Now, can we win in the short
You
run?
got an L on your forehead.
Yep. In the short run, you can win.
Yeah, you
But
can
over here on the far right, you are absolutely going to lose, for sure.
stay there long enough and you're going to lose.
You will. Correct. Now, what if they paid, remember, 37 to 1 would make us just go sideways. What if they paid you 38 to 1?
Man,
Oh, now we're in. But notice that it would be wrong. People would say, oh, this is a great bet because you can bet a little and make a lot. Well, you could bet a little and make a lot here, and it was horrible. But here you could bet a little and make a lot, and it's great. So it's not just about that I can bet a little and make a lot. We have to say, what are the associated probabilities? And that's the part that everybody misses. So I hope that gives you some things to think about. If you hear anybody out there talking about, I like this spread because you can pay 1 to make 4. Meaningless. You got to have some sense of the probabilities behind it.
and that's what these, I say this all the time. That's what options are.
Yeah.
Options, the dollars, the pricing of the options is about the probability.
Absolutely. Total.
That's what it is. So you have to, you can't dismiss the probability of the bet. When you do, you're going down the wrong path.
Going down the wrong path. And you're going to
Absolutely.
think that you're going down the right path. And the more convinced you are, you're going to stay on that bad path, betting more and more money, trying to make up those losses, and you're just digging a deeper hole.
And
then
here's
traders
a
scratch their
trap.
heads and they can't figure out.
Right. Here's a trap. You did it that way, and you won, and you might even say to yourself, "Wow, I won." You got lucky.
That's right.
You were that slide before where you won in the beginning. So you bet again, and you bet, and eventually it's just going to go away.
It will.
I just heard it yesterday. I won, I won, I won. And now I like kind of gave it all back. Whether it's one trade or 1,000 trades.
Yeah.
I rolled, I did, I was winning, and now I gave it all back. Well,
Yeah.
because it was an unfair bet to you. You felt it was, you perceived it to be a
Percent
fair
right.
bet, but it wasn't. It
It
it, it
just is.
was
Yeah.
it was against
So
you.
let me show you some other little tips here for figuring out odds. I think people might find this helpful. Let's say that you have a 10% chance to win. So maybe you've got 10 numbers in a hat. You have to draw one of the 10, some type of a game. Well, there's a 90% chance to lose. So what are the odds? Here's the way you figure them out. There's a 1 in 10 chance to win, right? 1 out of 10. We're going to take whatever number is in the numerator up here, in this case, 1. It's not always going to be 1. It might be a 2 and 5 or a 3 and 7. But
Mhm.
in this case, it's a 1. And we're going to bring it down. So now we have 1 over 1 plus 10. But I need to change this 10 to a number that makes these two add up to 10.
Right.
So
So
that's going to be 9. And so that's going to be your odds. So notice it's still 1 over 10, 1 over 1 plus 9. But when we break them out this way, these are the odds. So they are 9 to 1 against. So a fairly valued bet is what? Bet 1 to
9
make 9. And in this case, it's just okay.
or bet
Not
9 to make 1. Either way, it's just the other side of the bet.
other side of the bet, right? Let's take a look at this one. You have a 40% chance to win, 60%
But you think the bet 1 to make 9 is like phenomenal.
phenomenal, right? And I would look at that. I would have no interest in it. It's just a fairly valued bet, right? So we got a 40% chance to win, 60% chance to lose. What are the odds? Well, now we've got 2 out of 5, right? That's 40%. So we swing the 2 down below. So now we have 2 over 2 plus some number that we need to make equal 5, right? We're still trying to keep it 2 over 5, so that's got to be 2 over 3, or 2 over 2 plus 3. So those are the odds. Would be 3 to 2 against. Now, if you're trying to figure out if it's for or against, look at the chance to win. The odds are against you, so you should have to pay a little to make a lot. But it might be a 60% chance to win or an 80% chance to win. Now you're going to have to pay a lot to make a little. Okay, so the idea is that evaluating bets, if a bet is priced below fair value, it's a favorable bet. So let's say the fair value is, we'll make it kind of extreme here, 9.9 to 0.1. And you might, but that's what we calculate the probabilities to be. But for some reason, we can bet 9.9 to win 50 cents. What do you think about that? Fair value is we should only win 10 cents, but we can win 50 cents. That is massive, massively good bet.
But look at what your bet, like, see how the perception changes?
Yeah, people would say, "Oh, it's a horrible bet. It's 9 point. You're betting a lot to win a little." It's got nothing to do with it. But then where traders make another wrong turn is this. If this is good right here, 9.9 to win 50 cents, betting 99,000 to win 5,000 is the same bet.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do that because it's 99,000
And they'll say, "Oh, that's a
or
dangerous
99
bet."
million. Or
Don't do that. That's
don't
just
do that.
horrible.
Don't do that. It's the same
It's the
exact bet.
same bet. It's got nothing to do with whether it's a good bet or not. You're just putting a subjective value on the dollars.
Whether it's 990, 99,000, 2.4 million to win 60,000, whatever it is, it's the same bet.
It's the same bet.
It's not our place to judge the money that one is willing
Right.
to bet.
The
It's
money
about the
here,
probability.
right. For you might be willing to bet 990. Bill Gates might be willing to bet 990,000. It's the same bet. It's not a question of saying just because you might not be comfortable betting those dollars doesn't mean it's a bad bet. And yet we hear that from so many traders. Something that is statistically a great bet, they'll come along and say, "Oh, just don't do it. It's a horrible bet because look at how much they put into it versus how much they could make."
Okay, everyone, this is the math.
Amateurish mistake.
right. This is the math behind it. This isn't the emotion behind it. Right? As traders in the marketplace, we're supposed to take all the emotion out of it and just trade the market. And that's what this is.
That's right.
This is not about, oh my God, it's a lot of money, or oh, that stinks, or betting
Yep.
I'm not betting 7 to make 2 or 3. It's not any of that, right?
Right.
It's just about the probability of the bet.
What is the pricing relative to fair value? That's really what it comes down to. So again, many traders would say this is a bad bet, but the dollars have nothing to do with the quality of the bet. If it's a good bet, it's a good bet, no matter how many dollars are in it. Now that doesn't mean you have to be comfortable betting 99,000, but if you're willing to bet 9.9, you're willing to take the same bet. How can you say it's suddenly bad just because somebody puts more money into it? See, it's a complete misperception, and a lot of real amateur traders will do that. They always make us judgments based on the amount of dollars in it, and they'll just immediately jump to conclusions and say it's a bad bet. And it just isn't. So, a little survey of some of the topics in probabilities and with fair value. So, let's go back to our chalk talk question. Which is better, bet 1 to make 4 or bet 9 to make 1? Well, right here, the way that I would answer it is that we don't know, because these are two different bets, right? The other side of the bet would be bet 4 to make 1. They're two different bets, but what do we know are the implied odds here? The odds are against me because I get to bet a little to make a lot. What's 1 over 1 plus 4? 20%. I'm sorry, 20%. So I've got a 20% chance to win this. If I have a 21 or 22 or 25% chance to win it, yeah, this is favorable. But then I might look at this and go, oh, this is horrible. Bet 9 to make 1. What's the implied probabilities? 9 over 9 plus 1 is 90%. The implied probability here is 90%. If I have a 95% chance to do it, I would take that.
I was just going to say that if it was if you could win 90, what 9, if you could bet 9 to win 150.
Or right, you could also change the reward. That's another way to do it. Correct.
Yeah, that would be a great bet.
Even though people say, "Oh, you're betting a lot to make a little," but then when you come here
Puke, right?
and say bet 1 to make 4, right? So if that's fair value, and then we say it's that you have to bet 1 to make 3, now it's a horrible bet.
Look, a lot of this also has to, it has to do with conservation of capital. It has to do with safety. It has to do with where you are in your investment career. How much risk are you really willing to take? That's a question that everybody has to ask themselves as they go through their life, their career. How much risk am I really willing to take? And the issue that Phil and I are talking about here is that people are evaluating risk by the dollars that they're
By the
spending,
dollar, right? Got
those
nothing to do with it.
probabilities of the win.
Right. So if we made this to where you could bet 1 to make 3, it's a horrible bet, even though some traders would jump on it because you're betting a little to make a lot. And they'll say, oh, in my book, that's a good bet. And you're going, well, that's just not true. It depends on the probabilities. So we hope.
Suppose you had $200,000 that you had to put down as a down payment on a home that you were buying next week, right? I mean, are you going to put it into the market knowing that you had to come up with that money next week, knowing that the market could take a dump on any day, any minute of any day, on anything and everything that could happen in the marketplace? No, you're going to want to go into a safe bet that's a high probability, and you're going to look to be winning very, very little by betting. If you're going to put 200,000, maybe you'll get 205,000 back for
Right.
so,
Horrible bet in terms of risk reward. Well, maybe, but it's super high probability.
It's a safe.
Right. It's a safe bet.
Yeah.
But so hopefully we just wanted to get that concept across. We still hear this a lot and from people who should know better, but we hear it all the time. But hopefully those will give you some things to think about. If nothing else, just understand that betting a little or paying a little, let's say in the options market, to make a lot does not automatically make it a great bet. We have to assess the probabilities. And so with that, we want to thank all of you for being here. And we'll have
Good
to see,
topic.
Stu, what happens to our markets here. We'll see many of you at noon in in Q&A, and we'll see the rest of you next Thursday for Coach's Corner. We'll see you then.
See you then. Bye.